So in this video, I'm going to go through calculating unknown side lengths using cosine. So this is the worksheet that you guys were assigned as part of consolidating your understanding of cosine. So the first question here is asking us, what does CA stand for? So remember that it is an acronym, and what it represents is the function cos, and it's telling us that we need an adjacent and a hypotenuse. So I'll just write that out. I have seen this written also like the following. So again, that tells us that we're using cosine. So that represents cos, and then it's A divided by H. Another way that some people do choose to write it is by creating a pyramid and writing the function up the top, so C for cos, and then A divided by H. Again, they all mean the same thing, and what it's telling us is that for the function of cos, we require an adjacent or a hypotenuse. So moving on to question 2, we're told to use a calculator and calculate the following, and note the instruction that it's to 2 decimal places. So if we pull out the calculator here, you can see the cos button there. I'm just going to type in 64 degrees, making sure that our calculator is in the correct mode as well. And we get 0.44. So doing the same now for the rest of the questions, I'm going to evaluate what cos of each of those angles are. So now the next question we have here says to copy out the 4 slides under calculating unknown adjacent sides from Education Perfect, and that the first slide looks like the following. So what we're going to do here is we're going to calculate the unknown side length. So here we've got our adjacent. So our adjacent is represented by the letter X. We have our reference angle. And we have our hypotenuse, which is represented by 8 centimeters. So now using our trigonometric functions, I'm just going to write all of them out just so that you get into the habit of being able to identify which ratio to use. So I just made a mistake on this one. So immediately we know that we don't have an opposite, and we're actually asked to find our adjacent. So without an opposite, I'm going to cancel the use of sine, and I'm also going to eliminate tan because we don't have an opposite and we're not asked to find it. So by eliminating out 3 options, or eliminating the 2 not so feasible options for us here, you can see that we've arrived at CA. And we know with the theme of this particular worksheet, we're looking at using cosine anyway. So I'm going to write cos of our angle equals to the adjacent over our hypotenuse. So now cos of our reference angle, which it happens to be 45 degrees, is equal to X divided by 8 centimeters. So now before I put this into the calculator, I obviously need to move that 8 to the left-hand side. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 8. And then that leaves me with 8 times cos of 45 degrees equals X. So now I can put that into my calculator. So just pull that out. So we've got 8 times cos of 45 degrees. And that gives me a length of 5.66 centimeters. So that means our adjacent length equals to 5.66 centimeters. So that's this length here. Again, one thing we do have to double check is whether our adjacent is longer than our hypotenuse, and we know for a fact that 5.66 is definitely smaller than 8, so we know that our calculations are correct. So I'm going to go around and do the same thing for the next set of questions. Again, follow along with the working out. All right, so in the next question, we're asked to calculate the hypotenuse of the following triangles. So we'll start by labeling our sides again. So we know that 7.7 kilometers represents our adjacent length, and this time our hypotenuse is E, or is represented by the variable E. So here what we're going to do, I'm going to start by writing out the equation as I have in the past, and that's purely to get you guys familiar with the elements of what is required for the cosine function. So now substituting what I've got, so I've got 24 degrees for an angle, and that's equal to 7.7 kilometers divided by E. So here we're going to have to do a few more steps in order to find what E is. So I'm going to multiply both sides by E, and then that's going to give me E times cos of 24 degrees equals 7.7. Now I need to get that E by itself, so I'm going to divide that by cos of 24. So I'm going to divide both sides by cos of 24, and that's going to give me E is equal to 7.7 divided by cos 24. Therefore E is equal to, and if you go to your calculator, set up a fraction, so we can just type in 7.7, move the cursor down, cos of 24, and that'll give us E is equal to 8.43, I'm going to say 43 kilometers. So now I'm going to do exactly the same thing for the next two questions. Have a go at following along with the working out and making sure that you arrive at the same answer as well. If you haven't, that's completely fine. Maybe go back and try the question again and compare your working out against mine and see what's different or what you can improve on. Now, just one thing I do want to note, sorry, is that it's okay if you don't have all the same steps as I do. If you find a more efficient way of working this out, that's completely fine. I like to be a little bit more methodical in my working out, just in case you look back at this video and you can't quite figure out what's happened between the steps. So that's, I just thought I'd point that out to you guys. So now the last question is talking about John being at the park with his dad flying his kite. They are standing at opposite ends of the park, and John is flying the kite and has to tie his shoelace so he secures the end of the string into the ground next to his toes. The string of the kite makes a 33-degree angle with the ground. If John's dad looks up, he can see the kite directly above him. If the string of the kite is 154 meters long, how far apart are John and his dad? So I'm going to have a go at drawing the diagram out first. So this is a strategy I would recommend you do when you are faced with more complex problem-solving questions, because at the very core of them, you are purely trying to find out the answer. So remember, you always need to remember that these kind of questions will require you to use the skills you've developed, but the challenge here is actually understanding how to put all this information into a diagram or into a form that you recognize. Now, it may not be the greatest drawing, but what I've done here is I've tried to synthesize the information into a diagram. So you can see that I've made the string of the kite that's tied to John's shoelace at 33 degrees to the ground. If the string of the kite is 154 meters long, so we're assuming here that this little dangly bit is going to be the string of the kite. and that's going to be 154 meters long. So I've drawn a straight line because we obviously are assuming that this string is 154 meters long as a straight line. It's not crinkly. And then what we're trying to find is obviously the distance between John and his dad. So I'm going to say D for distance. So if I draw this out now in a form that we recognize, so we've got the right angle triangle. We're obviously trying to find our adjacent. So I'm just going to write A. And we know our hypotenuse is 154 meters. The angle, or our reference angle here, is 33 degrees as well. So using the cosine rule, so I've got cos of my angle is equal to my adjacent divided by hypotenuse. So we've got cos of 33 degrees is equal to D divided by 154 meters, multiplying, actually I'll forget the meters for now, and we'll come back and put that information in at the end. So now moving that 154 to the left hand side, I'm going to multiply both sides by 154, and then I'm going to have, so D is equal to 154 times cos of 33. Now putting that into my calculator, I've got 154 times cos of 33 degrees, and that's equal to 129.116, we'll say, 16 meters. So that means the distance between John and his dad is 129.16. Now the question is asked to you in words, so I would go back and actually give my answer in words. Given that I'm running out of space, I might just write it here. So there you go. Those are the answers to our worksheet on using cosine to help us calculate the length of unknown sides. Hopefully you were able to follow along with this and you did do the worksheet. Just in case you are having some trouble, please make sure to reach out to your teacher and get them to help you clarify what you're not 100% certain on.